Jezebel laughed exultantly. Hamul is on Mount Carmel with Kubli. At the right moment, Baal will strike and Elijah will die. Before this day is ended, I will triumph over the Israelite God. Then no one in all the land will be able to resist me.
This is I Don't Even Own a Television, The Curse of Jezebel.
Spooky.
1, 2, 3.
There are books that are good, there are books that are bad. There's some books so fucking awful you wish you never had read them at all. Cause a novel can ruin your life. Hey buddy, I don't even own a television.
All right, welcome to I Don't Even Own a Television, a podcast about bad books. I am J.W. Friedman.
I'm Chris Collision.
And with us today is the queen of a long-forgotten realm, Centa Schumacher.
Hey.
We're here today to discuss a book by Frank G. Slaughter called The Curse of Jezebel. Before we get started, just some full disclosure, behind-the-scenes info. We've already recorded this entire podcast once, but we had all sorts of technical difficulties and didn't want to force it upon you, the listener. So we're doing it again.
Yeah.
And we won't stop until it's right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Chris is probably going to say something better than
No,
what I
not
was
at
going
all.
to say.
I was going to say we're not going to stop till you get enough, but that doesn't make any
That's
sense
better.
at all.
Yeah, but it's more Michael Jackson-y. Yeah, so also, this book, a little bit interesting in that it's pretty much unavailable to read now. We had one paperback copy between the three of us, which leads to my uncomfortable confession, which is, despite trying my absolute hardest, I have not read much of this book. I skimmed through it very briefly. So today, I'm going to be your audience proxy. I did go on the website that labeled itself as the library of the world, that had free PDFs of all these old novels that you can't find anywhere else. But I didn't notice it had a .ru domain extension until It was too late. And it was essentially one of those like Russian MP3 sites, but for PDF books that don't exist. So when you click on the link that says download, it just takes you to like a porn site or something. So
You know what, honestly, a porn site would probably have been more enjoyable than this book.
Yeah, probably.
I also just want to jump back and thank you because when you said you had an uncomfortable confession, I was terrified. And this was about as good an uncomfortable confession as I can imagine for this podcast.
In between two married people.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, also, Chris, you're our unicorn. No, all right.
Yay!
Super awkward. All right, anyway. So, the book is The Curse of Jezebel by Frank G. Slaughter. It's a tale of biblical intrigue and military. And I know it's probably a good time for us to do a plot in 60 seconds. So here is the theme song.
Nobody knows if you finish or not. You got 60 seconds to give them the plot. Plot in 60 seconds.
Okay, so at the beginning of plot in 60 seconds, I will say go. After I say go, Chris, you will have 60 seconds to summarize the book to the best of your ability. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Here we go.
The time is Bible. The place is biblical. The Israelites must choose between Yahweh and Baal. A young prince named Michael also must choose between Miriam, a devout and extremely devoted to Jewish history young lady, and Jezebel, a hot, pagan, power-hungry woman who is, incidentally, the king's wife. Meanwhile, the king, King Ahab, is trying to unite the kingdoms and defend the realm against invasion from Assyria under King or Emperor or something, Shalmaneser. Luckily for King Ahab, Michael is basically an olden times super soldier. He's not Captain America, but he's Captain Judah, maybe Captain Israel. He never loses a fight or makes a mistake on the battlefield. Spoiler for those of you who have read the Book of Kings, Jezebel dies, Israel doesn't lose, and things happen.
Ding, 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 ding. Just in time. Buzzer beater from half court.
Woo!
good job.
So that's pretty much it. It sounds very exciting. So I guess before we get any more into this...
Spoiler, it isn't.
Yeah, it's not.
Oh.
Before we get any deeper into this, though, Centa, you had introduced this book to the show. Do you want to talk about how and why you chose The Curse of Jezebel?
I mean, not just into the show, into our lives.
That's true.
Yes. I brought this into not just Jay and Chris's lives, but now all of you out there. It's in all of your lives now. I bought this book because I work next door to the Friends of the San Francisco Library bookstore. And while that has like really great deals on a lot of really good books, it also has like a 50-cent section of really pulpy bad novels and so I selected one based completely on the title and cover alone and gave it to Jay for Valentine's Day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I also gave him the autobiography of Slash, which
Yep.
I'm hoping will be on a future episode, but who knows?
I think it's going to be coming soon for sure.
We can guarantee that. We should jump back a little bit because when Jay noted that this is called The Curse of Jezebel by Frank G. Slaughter, and you mentioned the cover, that covers literally everything good about this book.
Yeah.
It's true.
Because the
It has
title
the
is
word
great.
slaughter.
It has the word slaughter in it.
Yeah. There's a sexy lady. She's wearing a really cool headband. I mean, like, it's probably kind of a fashionably applicable headband in our today's festival scene.
Yeah, it's really Coachella.
Yeah,
kinda.
it's very Coachella, but yet without being really, like Native American appropriative.
If you slap a couple feathers in there, you're good to go. Though.
Right, but it's not. It's just
Ready to
kind of
get down to-
it's just cute instead. It's just cute.
So you're saying it's the kind of headband that goes well with bangs.
Oh, yep, and so does Jezebel. Like she has some great bangs. Actually, I'm kind of a little bit jealous of her cat eye eyeliner and bang and red lip combo. It's very now.
Well, I'm sure we'll post a picture of the cover on the Facebook for sure and on the website along with the episode. But just for the people out there who can't see it, it's essentially a portrait of Jezebel who's drawn in the way that 1950s people, 60s people considered exotic, which is she's a dark-haired white lady with a lot of eye makeup.
She basically looks like Elizabeth Taylor and Cleopatra.
Yeah, wow, you're totally right. That's exactly
Spoiler.
it. So yeah, she's giving you a come hither look. It says Frank G. Slaughter's Curse of Jezebel, and honestly, it's a fucking cool font.
Yeah,
In
that's
case
a
you can't
great
tell,
font.
There's not a lot to enthuse about in this book.
So we're talking about fonts.
Yeah, so we're fixated on the cover.
Oh, also, by the way, so I bought this book for Jay for 50 cents. It originally sold for 50 cents.
Whoa.
Time
Yeah.
really is a flat circle.
Yeah.
See, I was going to make a Lion King joke. Yours was better. Yeah, so I guess we should talk about the book.
Okay.
So, and as I said earlier, my familiarity with this is very slim. So I'm going to kind of leave it to you guys. And then,
Despite the fact that I bought it for him.
hey, we had one book for 3 people.
Right.
And
I bought it in February. It
Hey.
is now June.
Okay, anyway. My point being, for you at home, this book is filled with crazy shit where you'll be like, I don't know what's going on. And now I don't know what's going on either, so I can help guide you through the rocky terrain of Frank Slaughter's The Curse of Jezebel, as our learned scholars discuss in depth. So,
Quite
guys,
right.
let's break this down. What is your favorite part? And that pregnant
Centa,
pause
do you wanna jump
says a
in?
lot.
Okay, I'm torn between 2 things. One, Jezebel basically roofies the main character into having sex with her.
For days.
For days. For like 3 days. And no one has ever satisfied her hunger like he has.
What is the phrase? Like her passion was surfeited?
Yeah, or
something.
like she was finally sated.
Yeah.
Like, or the fact that later he's like, no, to his fiance, it's like, no, I had to sleep with her in order to save Israel.
Biblical gaslighting.
And
Yeah.
she buys it.
And yeah, she's like, well, you know what? God forgave a lot of other people for doing terrible things. I can forgive you. Because basically she's comparing herself to God.
Pardon me for repeating myself, and the first time around I had mentioned this, but it reminds me a lot of the concept of the free pass that you see a lot in movies, but not real life, where couples are like, oh, there's one celebrity that's okay for you to sleep with. But it would be like if you propose that to your significant other with the justification of, this is what's necessary to keep the world running.
I will say it's the first free pass I've ever seen that's explicitly described as, no, it's good for the Jews.
Yeah, that's true. I'm going to start trying that, actually. No, I'm just kidding. Not at all.
I will say that my favorite is not the right word, but the thing I disliked least was there's some military scenes described that I think are pulled off okay. the action is more or less compelling, and the author's ludicrous obsession with over-describing the environment is actually really well suited for action like that, because you actually understand where everybody is and kind of where they're trying to go and what's supposed to be happening.
Yeah.
So it's okay on that front. That's also maybe 15 pages out of a nearly 300-page book.
This part Chris is describing, I skipped.
Which is fair.
Because I came into it being like, yeah, sexy sex and Jezebel, and I was and like Mad Max, was sorely disappointed with the amount of lady involvement.
I think that's a valid criticism when a book is called The Curse of Jezebel and she occupies maybe 30 pages.
Yeah.
We talked about this off air. It's pretty clear that what this book was actually written and sold under was not The Curse of Jezebel, but like The Muscles of Michael.
Yeah.
Because that's who the book is about. It's about this non-entity.
Prince Michael, savior of Judah.
Okay,
Right.
let's rewind here though. Okay. This is not the Michael you're thinking of
No.
from the Bible.
No Michaels that you know.
He rows the boat ashore 0 times.
Yeah,
Yeah.
none.
So this Michael, it appears to be, is a pretty obvious authorial stand-in for Frank G. Slaughter.
Yeah. He's just like a scion prince who just is very life words. He's very muscular and
Yeah.
elegant, but has no possibility of succeeding the throne of Jerusalem, which is southern Israel at this point.
He's the crown prince of fucking.
Yeah, oh God, so he is.
Yeah, and definitely the crown prince of like kicking ass at wrestling and militarily in general. Like he never loses a battle.
He
like I
never
said.
loses.
He is on the battlefield and he's like, my God, if people go 30 paces to the south, we're sure to win. And then he goes 30 paces to the south and they win.
Yeah.
It seemed like he had knowledge that someone could only have centuries removed from the occasion. Yeah. Everyone wondered why. The author did not.
So, I mean, the biggest problem, I mean, we're kind of dancing around it. I alluded to it in Plot in 60 Seconds. So this is basically the story that's in, the Book of Kings or something.
Yeah, Book of Kings.
Right.
Kings 1 and told redifferently in Kings 2.
There you go.
Thanks, Wikipedia.
That was somebody who comes in who actually knows something about the Bible.
A little bit. A little bit.
And so the problem is
Wikipedia.
this is basically biblical fanfic, right? There's no narrative tension because it's the same story that you could read in 30 pages of the Book of Kings, right? But instead, there's a bunch of fake-ass characters like Michael and Miriam running around and theoretically being the actual important actors rather than the ones actually written down in the Book of Kings. Or, for example, like Jezebel.
Right.
Yeah.
Who, like I said, gets basically 0 on screen time, despite being the titular character.
But also, actually, in Kings, she's not given a lot. She's just like bad. She's bad. She's a temptress. And then she dies.
Right. But we agreed that in this, like, she doesn't come across as a bad character.
No.
She's painted as a very bad character throughout, but whenever she's explaining herself, because one character is never not explaining themselves
Oh my
to
God, constant
whoever they're
explaining.
talking to. But every time she is explaining herself, like, you're kind of nodding and thinking, that seems pretty reasonable.
Right. She was like, I was, exchanged as a young girl to, establish peace between two countries. Ahab never really cared that much about me either. So I'm doing my best to, establish my place in this world. I'm doing what I can with what I got. And what I got is this banging body.
And the faith she was raised in.
Yeah,
Right?
right? Because, okay, so biblical history, in that Solomon, a biblical king before Ahab,
A.K.A.
famous
the
king.
baby chopper.
Oh, yeah, and also the writer
his
of
rap
Song
name?
of Songs, like a.k.a. the Bible's love song.
That's not a good Wu-Tang name.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
King
true.
Solomon, sorry.
Okay.
We're really mining this one.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Nice save. Out of the dirt. Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt.
So, and actually, they mentioned this several times that, there's in the book that
Yeah.
there's this precedent that King Solomon married a non-Yahweh worshiping lady, and he gave her shrines to worship her gods and goddesses, and so King Ahab does the same thing with Jezebel, but yet it's suddenly less okay, and So she is taken from the country of her birth, given away without her consent to a man, and people hate her for worshiping the gods of the place where she was born.
Yeah, that's pretty messed up.
Yeah, and then and also her gods seem way fucking cooler than what's the established rule of Yahweh, like Baal and I want to call her Astarte because that's the modern equivalent, but it's like Astarta or something like that. It's very impronounceable.
Yeah, you've got the book, so I'm not
gonna look. They're basically like, pleasure is our principle. All things that are of pleasure are our acts. Go and be happy. We want you to be happy. And then Yahweh's like, don't ever be happy. Please, like, sacrifice things and don't have sex. For God's sake, don't have sex.
And no shellfish.
Jesus.
Wait,
not yet.
Zing. The Baal worship kicks off the book. It's very, very early on where Michael, as the audience proxy, sort of wanders in to see what's going on. And it basically starts off with, like, a barbecue that descends into an orgy.
Right. And who in San Francisco is opposed to one of those? That's
People hate it when we talk about San Francisco on the show.
But that's basically
Really?
like every weekend here on.
I think like one of the only negative reviews I've ever read, it really stuck with me because it's like, what would you expect from San Francisco liberals?
Yeah, you would expect orgies and ball, I guess.
In Dolores Park. That's a little more local color for you folks out there.
Listeners, I live in Oakland, okay? So don't tar me with your brush.
I don't know. There's actually a lot more paganism in Oakland than there is in San Francisco. I'm just going to tell
That's
you
because
that.
pagans can't hold down a job.
Anyway. You said it, not me.
Yeah, so rolling on, I mean, basically, like, what we're looking at here, from what it seems like, is a historical fiction novel based on events from the Bible that also seems very concerned with kind of, like, painting the character of Jezebel, like, with an even worse brush than what already exists.
Then she gets in the Bible.
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't know if you really need to pile on Jezebel at this point. It seems like that's kind of, an accepted thing within this particular spiritual tradition.
Okay, so, I did a cursory Google search on this book, and in order to find the Wikipedia page because I'm incredibly lazy. But instead, the first result wasn't the Wikipedia page on this book. It was the weird, deep pull, dig, other words for deep, of evangelical Christian belief of demons and stuff. And there's a Jezebel demon. And the curse of Jezebel is that A, you defy authority figures, B, you're usually a woman, and C, you're like, you are not happy unless you're sexually fulfilled. So
I'd like to say at this point that my wife left me.
right, I mean, really, and it's like, and the opposite is the Ahab principle or the Ahab curse.
What? Are you shitting me?
Which is to be like bowled over by a woman and to just be,
Sexually satisfying your wife?
Or just to make your wife happy and to like listen to what she says and to listen to her suggestions.
That sounds like the possession of a demon.
Yeah. What could be more evil?
You are listening to the Jezebel demon at this moment.
You've been possessed by a demon that caused you to become a fully realized human being.
Holy shit.
Unbelievable.
All right, it's probably time for us to take a break. We're going to do that, and then we're going to come back and talk more about this book and do a couple segments, so stick around. All right, welcome back to I Don't Even Own a Television. With us is Centa Schumacher.
Hey.
We are talking about The Curse of Jezebel by Frank G. Slaughter. And not the greatest book, honestly.
Nope.
It's not. I want us to talk a little bit more about it. We haven't done a lot of talking about it, and that's kind of because there's not a lot to talk about. One of the things that I said earlier is that this is sort of Bible fanfic with kind of an inserted character to drive a plot. Yeah, Michael and Miriam, these inserted characters to kind of drive the plot. The problem is the plot is not, as far as I can tell, different than it is in the Book of Kings. So the inserted characters are totally superfluous and not very well drawn. And so every time an actual character pops up, like Ahab or Jezebel, they're actually interesting characters. Or in the last third of the book, a character named Jehu comes in, and he's actually interesting and nasty. And the one invented character who's actually at all interesting is Michael's slave, Aaron.
Shout out to Aaron, also the name of my brother.
Woo!
Hi, Aaron, you're not listening to this.
Did you actually picture your brother as the...
Sometimes, yes, because actually my brother would have said a lot of the shit that Aaron, the character, said in the novel.
Well, let's drill down, though. I mean, you know, like, what is Aaron saying in this novel? What is his function?
Essentially, Aaron is the side-eye emoji of this novel. It's like anytime Michael does anything, Aaron has kind of a sarcastic, witty thing to say in response.
You can give that to this novel, too, because at least the main character, Michael, is not particularly noble or virtuous. He fucks up all the time interpersonally.
Yeah. He literally is fucking interpersonally quite often.
He's a great warrior and he never loses, but like every time he's talking to a person, he completely boots it. And then usually 5 pages later, Aaron's like, I don't know what you're doing, buddy. Maybe you should have another drink.
Yeah.
So it kind of sounds like he's a Rosencrantz or a Guildenstern.
Perhaps.
A little bit. And like half the time when you're reading this, it is the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern effect where you're like, why is this book not about this person?
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
more Aaron, less Michael.
More Jehu. Like he comes in at one point very late in the book after, Michael has, for the 11th time, forsworn Jezebel and sworn his allegiance to Miriam. And he's actually sleeping outside the city with all the soldiers, so he's not tempted. And then Jezebel comes to his tent, and they almost do it but don't. And then she leaves. And then Jehu wanders in, grabs Michael's wine sack, starts drinking his wine, and be like, smells like a girl in here. If you're not too tired from whatever you were doing, maybe we could do some military strategy. And you're like, this guy's great. Why is the whole book not about Jehu?
And also, why isn't? Because he's an actual biblical character.
Right.
Why wasn't the book about him?
Yeah, it is weird, I think, that there even is a superfluous character in a story that already has so many pre-existing characters, any of whom could have been the hero.
Right,
which any of whom you could have, like, kind of, retconned a little. Like, I mean, seriously, Jehu could have been the star of this whole story. He could have been fucking Jezebel and then killed her. In fact, the person who was fucking Jezebel, frankly, probably should have killed her. That would have been a much more poetic end.
Oh, spoiler. We may have mentioned that earlier.
We did.
Okay,
she dies.
Jezebel dies, and this was something that bothered me just on a book level. Like, you're reading a book, and one of the things you kind of expect is the big bad and the big hero to really resolve their issue and clash. Thank you. And in this book, who kills Jezebel is a minor character who is described as chubby because this is one of the books where all the skinny people are good and all the fat people are bad. So this fat character magically picks Jezebel up over his head and hurls her over the parapet down to the dogs at the wall of Jezreel or something, where the dogs feast on her flesh.
Yeah.
And instead of the main hero, who's basically just standing there saying, "Don't hurt my girlfriend," and it's just not one of those really well done dramatic scenes.
All that survives are the palms of her hands.
That is so disturbing.
It is.
Also,
that's pretty fucking freaky.
The fact they said the palms and not just her hands, it's like that's the disturbing part. I don't know. I don't like that visual at all.
Just like a little square of meat.
Yeah, some meat with some lines in it.
Spoiler: Old Testament vengeance, not entirely savory.
Yeah,
No.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess we should probably now. No, actually, we can't move on yet because there's a really important thing we haven't talked about yet, which is something mentioned in this book as the flower of dreams. If
Oh,
you guys would like
yeah.
to elaborate.
Talking about marijuana.
I think they are.
Something. It's hard to say.
Well, the reason why I think it's marijuana is
Well, wait,
because...
let's rewind. Let's talk about what it is in the book.
Okay, I'm going to talk about it.
Do it.
So, Michael finally has summoned Jezebel's chambers. And she's like, hey, Ahab, who is her husband, is like, he's going to be gone for a couple days because he's out, like, testing to see which god is actually real, whether it's a Baal or Yahweh. So
There's probably some funk guitar playing in the
right.
background.
Oh god, there's so much funk guitar. And like she's like, so we're gonna fuck for the next 3 days. And she's like, give me some wine. You can have some wine too. And he's like, this wine, I've never tasted wine like this. It must be spiced in a different way because she is not from here. And they keep drinking wine. He's like, I only had four cups of wine, and suddenly I was staggering around.
Yeah.
What was this wine? And she was like, oh, I put this herb in it. The flower of dreams. My slave knows how to grow them.
Ooh.
Certain warriors will eat it before they go into battle, and they lose the difference between fear and love. She's like, but when you're in the bedroom, all it does is increase pleasure. And then she turns into a goddess, and then a goddess turns into her.
I think,
And then they literally do it for like 48 hours.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
They do it for like several days, but they don't describe it. They're like 2 days later.
Her passions were sated.
Yeah, she was. He fucked her so good she spilled all her secrets and fell asleep.
Right. And she does, like, that is exactly what happens. And she does sort of say, like, the last thing she says before she passes out is like, no man has pleasured me in such a way before.
Good work, Frank G. Slaughter. I mean, Michael.
yeah. But basically, like, I'm kind of in line to agree with you about the weed thing, just based on what I know about Middle Eastern history and hashish and assassins and the origin of the term and all of that stuff.
They were from Assyria. They
Yeah.
were fighting Assyrians, etc.
And so, what have we learned recently about Assyria in the news?
Solid gold bongs.
Ancient.
Ancient gold bongs.
Yeah, recently archaeologists have unearthed ancient golden smoking vessels in what was biblical Assyria that were described in the headline of the scholarly article that I read as ancient golden bongs.
It was on cannabis.org.
Yeah, scholarly.
So if... Listener, if you've noticed people getting very excited about the prospect of a Wikipedia article that was read in the course of this rather than the book, this says something about the book.
Or just tangentially being able to say ancient gold bongs as many times as possible. Oh my god, can anyone conceive of a better phrase than ancient gold bongs? Or maybe ancient solid gold bongs, because that's what they were.
There's been more than one conversation about whether that's a better album title or band name.
Album title.
I think either way, though, it has to revolve around some swampy stoner rock.
Oh,
Definitely.
Yeah.
So
but
look
maybe
forward
one
to
of the
that.
song titles is Curse of Jezebel.
Pretty sure that this is Jay's, 8th in line side project, and I'm hoping to contribute some of my inimitable bass stylings to said project.
Silence the priests of Baal by ancient golden bongs.
Exactly.
But okay, so this
I don't
book,
even own an ancient golden ball.
I have one from like high school, but it's plastic. I don't know if that counts. It's the ancient neon pink translucent plastic bong.
5 foot tall.
Hey man, will you light this for? All right.
It's got a Bones Brigade sticker on it.
I wish I was that cool at that point in my life, man.
And more said like Blink-182.
Yeah, probably. Millen Collin.
Damn it.
All right, but yeah, so this book, we've talked about it. This is basically a Bible story with an extra character. There's not much else to say unless I'm forgetting something.
Wait. We forgot one really awesome point in that Michael continuously... okay, so there's this other character, Miriam, who he's in love with. He loves her, but he wants to fuck Jezebel.
Yeah, he's not in lust with her.
No, he really actually has no desire for Miriam, like physically, but he loves her. She's cute. But, like several.
She's smart. She's dutiful.
Oh God,
she's described as a very good person. She's very devout. She's got,
she's the perfect wife.
she's one-dimensional, but yeah.
Well, she's the foil to a quote-unquote Jezebel.
Right, to a
character.
literal Jezebel.
Yeah.
She's the perfect wife for a writer who thinks maybe women probably shouldn't talk.
Yeah. But she reads a lot.
Right.
But yet,
Keeps it to
several
herself.
times, Michael is like, well, oh, right. So that time that he was fucking Jezebel for like 1,000 days straight, he learned from her because she was in such a state of lustful passion that she was planning to kill the prophet Elijah. And so once she passes out from all of his sexy sex, he dives into haven't we all? He dives into a cold pool, shakes off the effects of the weed, and like straight off runs in his heavy sandals. Get my heavy sandals, Aaron.
It's time to move.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm running to Miriam, and he goes and he saves Elijah. But he finds Miriam and he's like, look, I want to marry you, but I want you to know that if I hadn't fucked with Jezebel, Elijah would be dead.
Right.
And
follows it up by saying, I may have to fuck Jezebel again for the good of Israel.
Right, because
Yeah.
she's like, promise me you won't do it again. And he's like, I can't say I can't. Who knows? I saved us once.
Which is, I think Jay said earlier, is the best hall pass ever.
Yeah, we talked about this prior, but
Yeah.
I think that this is kind of a good lead into something you guys have mentioned a couple times off mic. We haven't really gotten in that this book is just thick with double standards when it comes to what makes a good man versus a good woman. And, there's obviously a lot to talk about there. We don't have a ton of time, but I think it's worth at least, discussing briefly. Like, it's pretty fucked up, right?
Michael is described over and over and over again by men and women alike as, having been sexually active before. There's not the weird requirement that he be virginal or chaste.
Right. Oh, but Miriam. Shit, like anybody
boy.
who's even vaguely sexually, even somebody who's vaguely sexually interested in sex, she was just like, ugh, disgusting.
Well, I want to mention, you brought up this off mic, Centa, and I think this is worth noting, is that, this is a Bible story, right? Mm-hmm. And, it exists within the realms of Christianity. And then, there's a scene basically where, somebody asked, I don't know if it was Jezebel or Miriam, after sex, oh, this isn't your first time, is it?
Oh, that's Jezebel, yeah. No, she's like, no, beforehand, she's like, stop being such an idiot. I know this isn't your first time. This isn't like the girl you had sex with under a hedge on the side of the road. You know what you're doing, and you need to not be so forward. You need to take your time with me.
Right.
And it's almost like she's like, no, hey, treat me right.
Which she says, and that happens 3 times.
Right.
It's not actually clear that they consummate the relationship until about page 100.
Yeah.
Which is the 3rd or 4th time they've hung out. There's been a lot of, I think what Centa called heavy biblical petting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Before then.
I just think, we've moved away from it a bit, but I do think it's worth mentioning. It's right, the biblical ideal is that you are virginal until you're married.
For both parties.
For both parties. But in this book, the hero is someone who's engaged in all sorts of dalliances.
Oh, yeah.
But a woman who does so is completely evil.
Right, and it's implied that, that he... has knowledge before he's met Jezebel, and considerable knowledge, not even it's his second,
He's got some tricks.
Yeah, it's like she's like, I expect you to treat me right. I expect you to know what you're doing, but it's kind of fucked up.
Yeah, but I don't know what else we can say about this. Are we forgetting anything?
I do. This book was written in 1961.
Okay, makes a little more sense.
That does make a little more sense. I wanted to talk a tiny bit about its genre because it's not something that I know a lot about.
Historical fiction.
Historical fiction. I don't read historical fiction. I know about myself that I'm a terrible reader of history. This book kind of felt like homework to me, and I kept having flashbacks to my freshman year in college when I was assigned a lot of history to read, and I was like, oh my god, I have 600 pages to read this week. It's all proper nouns. There's not a map anywhere. I have no fucking idea what's going on. It really reminded me strongly, I said this, I think, off mic, of when you guys did your episode about the Burroughs Martian tales. I happened to stumble over like the fourth book of those first, and the first chapter of it is completely impenetrable because it's nothing but proper nouns with no context. And
I think Burroughs was thinking he was writing some kind of Homeric Odyssey.
I think he did think that, and he definitely thought you wouldn't start with number 4. Reasonable on his part. I blame the library. Let's burn all the libraries.
Fuck those libraries. Sharing is for
Free
losers.
knowledge.
Exactly.
That's what Wikipedia's for.
Anyway, that's a lot more detail than you need. But, I'm reading this book and I'm like, there's a shitload of detail here. Like, every time Michael walks into a town, he has to describe the layout of the town, where the plaza is, where the well is, how thick the walls are, etc. And this happens 11 times. Every time he crosses into a valley, he has to list all the plants that he sees. Like, he rode into the valley of and saw cedars and poplars and olives and more cedars and apples and
lots of
figs.
cedars. They talk about cedar a lot.
They talk about cedar a lot. And I don't know, maybe that's what really adds a lot of verisimilitude or a lot of engagement to people who like historical fiction. So if long lists of things people see is appealing to you, this book may be for you. And in the author's foreword, he does mention, when I was writing this book, what was interesting to me was I wanted to tell stories about the people, but most importantly, the places. And that really rings true as you're reading it. Like, he really seems to have much more interest in the places than the people.
Yeah, but also, and I'm not a expert in historical fiction by any means, but I've read a handful of them, and I feel like this is still a very clumsy way because he does it in a very list-like way, as opposed to like using it as a description. It's like, because it's like, if you're writing a whole novel, you don't have to explain everything all at once in the front of it. You can especially when it's just incidental stuff about like historical uses of trees or, historical ways that the land was laid out and stuff. It's like, that doesn't all need to just be laid out as soon as someone sees it. It can be explained as someone interacts with it instead. And it's just, maybe some listeners will roll their eyes at a comparison, but I would say a good type of biblical historical fiction would be the Red Tent, because whether you're a big fan of the intense feminism aside, which of course I am, there's just a lot of stuff where she talks about what kind of food they eat and what types of tents they live in and stuff, where it's not like, and then we went into our tent, it looked like this and this and this. She was like, oh, I brushed aside this tent and someone was making more cloth to make this tent and it looked like this while she was making it, and I commented on how she wasn't doing it right. Well, and it's like you make it part of the story and then it becomes seamless.
It's
you don't
integrated
do that
into the people and their doings.
Exactly, as opposed to like
a list.
That our law is this.
Yeah. But as a guy who does actually, I've read some historical fiction that I've enjoyed, and what you're seeing here is just a very bad example of the genre.
All right.
It's fan fiction.
I can
that answers my question.
I can tell you exactly how this happened just from looking at Frank Slaughter's information on Wikipedia. He's an ex-military man, right? This is a guy that came to these books with a very clear position of the stuff that he wanted to write about. So what's happened here is that, like, in every single one of these chapters, it seems like he has a list of things he has to get out of the way before he can get to the good stuff. So it becomes like these lists of like, this happened, this happened. Okay, world's built. Now I can talk about their fucking phalanx formation or whatever, and that's what I think happened here. But yeah, I don't know.
It's not a good example of historical fiction by any means.
This answers my question. Okay, so if you like historical fiction, do not read The Curse of Jezebel by Frank G. Slaughter.
You couldn't if you wanted to. So
unless you go to the some friends of the library bookstore and happen to find it. But
all right, let me calibrate it this way, because we get a lot of feedback, and this is weird to me, about people. This is Heston walking through. It's fine. Everybody loves it.
It makes me cringe visibly, but I love him. So
everybody
just
loves
clickety.
it.
We have hardwood floors.
We get a lot of feedback about people who have said, wow, I'm watching Wayward Pines because you guys talked about Wayward Pines.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. Like, so let me try to calibrate this. Read The Curse of Jezebel if you must. pay no more than 50 cents for it.
Right.
It's what it cost in the edition we have from the reprint from 1963. That's fine.
Yeah.
And that's what it cost when I bought it this year in
Exactly.
2015.
You can probably extract 50 cents worth of enjoyment from Frank G. Slaughter's The Curse of Jezebel.
That's true. And on that note, I think it's time for us to take a break. We're going to come back,
Peace.
do a couple segments, recommendations, all that stuff. So please stick around, peoples.
Yes.
Welcome back to I Don't Even Own a Television, a podcast about bad books. We're here with Centa Schumacher.
Hello.
And we've been talking about The Curse of Jezebel.
And we've been talking about it so long, we are out of beer, listeners.
I know.
And feeling a little loopy.
Help.
I've drunk the flower of dreams. But anyway, so we've talked about the book. It's time to do some things you all like, some segments. Let's begin with an abbreviated version of dramatic readings. Here's a song.
Dramatic readings. We're gonna make it sound important. Dramatic readings. Yeah, I got some words for you.
All right, dramatic readings is what it sounds like. Only one of us will be doing one today due to time constraints, and that will be Centa. So are you ready?
Aye.
All right, let's begin.
Michael stopped in the doorway, hesitant to enter what was obviously Jezebel's bedchamber, but she seemed not to notice. "Shut the door," she said casually over her shoulder. "You heard Ahab say he would be away for several days, so we will not be disturbed." "Is this wise?" he demurred, listening to the faint voice of his conscience. Jezebel dropped the cloak she had been wearing outside the garden. As he had surmised, she wore one of the transparent tunics or chitons favored by the Phoenician women in the intimacy of their homes. Beneath it, as far as he could tell, her only garment was a small golden girdle she had worn about her loins at the temple of Ashereth. The nipples of her full breasts and the area about them had been delicately painted in gold to match the hue of the girdle about her hips. "Pour some wine," she said.
The nipples and the area around them may be the least sexy way to describe a breast I've heard in quite a long time.
Well,
Hey, those nipple areas looking hot.
Love
It
them.
was 1961. They
Yeah.
hadn't invented the areola yet.
Yeah.
Okay, so dramatic readings, sexy readings in this case.
Sexy reading.
Complete. We're going to move on to one more segment before we get on with things. This is called What is Your Fave?
What is your fave? What is your fave? When you're presented with a list of options, what is your fave?
All right, and what is your fave? I ask a very obvious question. So, I pose this to the two of you. Who is your favorite character in this book, non-Michael or Jehu edition?
God damn it. Those are the two good characters.
Yeah, that's what makes it fun.
Or not, I mean, not Michael, but Aaron. Right?
Aaron, yeah, sorry,
not Aaron,
non-Aaron
not
and
Jehu,
Jehu.
because Michael is not a good character.
Yeah.
Do you want to go?
Okay, I'm gonna have to go for the obvious, and Ball.
Wow, I
Whoa.
thought you were going to say Jezebel.
So did I.
I know, but really, Ball, like golden horned god, only interested in human pleasure. How can you not be okay with that?
That's pretty cool. Most of my experience with characters named Ball comes from the world of video games. So they're usually evil bad guys.
Mine comes solely from the movie The Ten Commandments, where they started sacrificing them and then they all died. But from this book, he just really wants everyone to be happy, and he's a really hunky dude wearing a bull mask.
There you go. So Chris.
Right. That's not unfair. I am going to go equally predictable. There's one paragraph where it's described that Michael has traveled so widely that he actually heard a blind minstrel tell the story of Greeks trying to invade Troy. And they sneak some of them into a big horse and blah, blah, blah. So my favorite character in this book is Homer.
Yeah, good job.
Good pull. Good one.
It's like a little cameo, a little
Yeah.
Homer cameo.
Yeah,
It
exactly. Because if you're ever writing a bad book, make sure you remind people of much better books.
So, okay, on that note, I think we should wrap it up and move into more positive territory. So, this is the point of the show where we recommend things that do not suck. Who would like to go first?
I think I can jump in.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah, so I'm reading this right now. I'm not done with it, but I think it fits well with the themes. It's a book of early 70s parodic science fiction. It's by Joanna Russ. It's called The Female Man. It is quite experimental, and it's definitely a product of its time, but it's very smart, very interesting, and just well worth a read. If you like nothing else, some of the scenes of 70s dinner parties will just flay your skin right off. So
Awesome.
Oh, that's already on my Goodreads.
All right, Centa?
All right. Well, in a companion historical sort of way, I'm going to recommend Hild by Nicola Griffith. It is a historical fictionalization of the childhood of Saint Hildebrand, she's set in oh gosh, I'm going to mess this up and not give you the correct time of England, but it was when England was old times when it was transitioning from paganism into Christianity, and so in some ways kind of shares this element with the book we are referencing, but in a much better way.
if such a thing is imaginable.
It's a really beautiful story. It really actually historically accurately describes things and kind of how gross they can be and how dirty and hard they can be, but also just the like kind of pure mysticism of living in a time before science. So Hild by Nicola Griffith.
And that's with it, like Hild with an E, right? Like Hildebrand shortened.
It's actually Hild.
Oh, see,
Yeah,
that's
no
good.
E.
I would have looked for it wrong.
Right. Super good. It's really long, but it's one of the best books I've read in the past year. So
Okay, so after these two recommendations of very good books that it sounds like, I'm about to come at you with something that may get you to stop listening to this podcast forever.
Aww.
And it's something I just completed reading on because it was free, much like my previous experiences with these books. It is by the one and only Blake Crouch, and it's entitled Run. And I really went into this like, oh, this is going to be horrible. Wayward Pines was bad but entertaining. This will be bad but entertaining. This is entertaining and not bad. I really enjoyed it a lot. Basically, like the story is that one night the Aurora Borealis comes out and everyone across the world can see it. And the people who do see it get this weird thing going on in their brain where suddenly they think everyone who didn't see it is their enemy. So it turns into this half of the world pursuing the other half of the world, and no one can really explain their motivations, but people are just chasing each other, trying to kill each other. It's dumb. It's an action-packed story. It's really fun. It's a quick read. And hey, I mean, at this point, I figure I owe Blake Crouch some goodwill. So check out Run if you maybe have like a book, say like a day that you want to read something fun that will not tax your brain at all.
typically my plan of action with reading is that I will read something kind of intense and intellectual and literature-y, and then I'll alternate it with something fun like what you were saying. So,
Yeah.
do that.
It's a break
after you
book.
read some Thomas Hardy or whatever. I know you all are reading Far from the Maddening Crowd because the movie just came out.
Right.
Once you finish that, then read Run.
And
Yeah.
I will definitely rewind and say, if I had known what I was going to read for this podcast afterward, I would have been a lot nicer about Wayward Pines.
Yeah. No,
I thought that was about as bad as it got. And
No.
oh boy, was
Chris,
I wrong.
you don't even know.
I will say, once again, Blake Crouch reveals himself not to be a master wordsmith. Like, there's a lot of very awkward wording, but it's a very terse, briskly plotted book that's a lot of fun to read, and actually, surprisingly, has some pretty well fleshed out female characters with agency. Like, I enjoyed it a lot in many ways. So.
Also,
Really?
Chris, you didn't have to read Real Men Don't Eat Quiche, so you can actually never complain.
You didn't have to read Wild Animus, but what's
I guess
not
we're
funny?
even. We're
I
even.
think it would be
Olympics
funny.
now.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so next up, we are going to read and respond to some listener mail.
Got a lot of good mail this time, so buckle up. We're going to start with Travis, no last name, who writes all caps subject line email, which is a fantastic way to get our attention.
That is.
And his email goes like this. Hi, my email has sort of 3 parts. Those parts are as follows. Questions, long paragraph discussion followed by a question, and then a hand job.
Already more structured than our
Love
show.
that.
Yeah.
Love it.
Part 1, questions. 1, where do you find all these terrible books? 2, how do you find the motivation to get through these terrible books? 3, why not post some pictures of your super noisy animals to your Twitter feed?
I'm working on that now, listeners.
Through the last breaks and most of the last segment, Centa was in fact taking pictures of the animals and posting them to her Instagram. So we'll work on that.
Yeah.
We'll steal them.
Or you could just follow me at Space Valkyrie.
That's true. Space Valkyrie on Instagram.
Good plug.
Yeah.
Where do you find all those terrible books? Well, sometimes people write in and recommend them, and there's just and sometimes Centa's walking by Friends of San Francisco Public Library, and a cover misleads us into thinking it's going to be awesome.
I'm going to let our listeners in on a little secret here. There's a lot of bad books.
There's more bad books than good books, I'd say.
I'd say the barrier to entry is a lot lower than a lot of other mediums, especially nowadays. And so you could read a shitty book every day and never run out of shit for the rest of your life. So that's not necessarily hard. I'd say the hard part is the other part, keeping the motivation up. Which in my case, it's you, good listener.
Yeah.
We do it for you.
I would say a deadline is very, very crucial with that, and the desire to make sure that your jokes are going to be not completely undercut because you skipped the last 10 pages where it was all revealed as a dream of a sexist jerk or something, So.
Spoiler, everything is the dream of a sexist jerk.
Oh, God.
Not everything, just Western civilization.
Oh, up top.
There haven't been enough high fives in this episode, by the way. So.
That's true.
There were in the first time we recorded it.
Yeah.
And that probably broke the recording.
I think my upstairs neighbor is about to break through the roof, so if you hear a loud noise, that's what's going on. Right. Frankenstein's monster recently moved in upstairs, judging from the footfalls. So.
Ooh.
Okay, so part 2, long paragraph discussion followed by a question. So, one of my favorite genres of book is really dumb books that manage to be really fun anyway. Frequents of this genre are science fiction, fantasy, and of course, science fiction fantasy, with a super annoying outlier that I'll get to when we get around to the hand job. I've noticed on this show, pretty much all the books do not get recommended at all.
This is true.
What books from the really dumb but fun genre really jump out at you?
Me first. Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan. Oh my god, they're the best, and they're dumb, and they're so good. Oh, they're so great. All 15 of them.
I agree with that.
Or 14 plus a prequel, excuse me. Oh, dumb and fun. I love them. Oh god, it's like, you know what? Game of Thrones, is all real and hard and sad and
gritty,
sexual and awful.
Edgy.
And Wheel of Time is none of that. It's great. It's just fun, and then sometimes they get sad, and then sometimes things get scary, and people almost die, but then they don't die. It's
good.
Great.
It's good. There's far less sexual violence.
None.
Far less clicking dogs.
Actually there aren't any. There's Loyal.
Yeah. But yeah, I mentioned one earlier, which was Blake Crouch. I think the reason that doesn't happen a lot is because usually when books are bad but also fun, I tend to kind of forget that they're bad. You know?
Right,
yeah.
Because in that way they become not bad because they're fun. It's like you can forgive something that isn't the best crafted thing if you're having an enjoyable experience, but something like The Curse of Jezebel, where it's not good and doesn't have an enjoyable experience, then you just spend your whole Saturday reading a book, and then you eat a bunch of cookies to make up for it.
This is true, but on to the hand job.
Oh yeah, I really want to hear about that.
Yeah. Part 3, hand job. I, like a lot of your listeners, found out about this show through Ready Player One. Basically what happened is I paid $9 for a book and I was going to get some entertainment out of it somehow, so I read the whole thing, laughing at, not with it, through most of the latter parts of the book. The whole time I kept telling my friend what a garbage book this was. When I reached the end, he sent me 3 different podcasts that had an episode talking about it.
Oh my god.
Yours was the only one that was entertaining.
Oh, hey.
I've since listened to all your episodes while out mowing pastures, mucking out stalls, and digging post holes.
Fucking
oh my
cool.
Gosh. Oh my gosh. Reader.
Please, please, please keep doing the wonderful things you do. Your podcast is wonderfully entertaining. Thanks,
Okay.
Travis.
Centa.
Shout out to fellow rural reader.
Centa, who is my wife. I don't think I mentioned this before. Not just a random stranger or guest, but my wife grew up on a farm.
I did. So I have sympathy and also grew up in said farm before the era of iPods, iPhones, and podcasts. So I'm also a little envious.
I make music, and one of the best pieces of fan mail I've ever actually gotten was from a guy who was a cheesemonger who told me that he liked to listen to my music while he was doing his cheesemonging. And
Is monging?
I don't know if it's monging while he was making cheese. Okay, let's just say that. But please write in, let us know the weird things you do while you're listening to the podcast, as long as they're not gross.
Hey, well, okay, like digging posts and stuff isn't weird. It's stuff people have to do.
No,
okay?
but I mean non-standard, as opposed to like on the bus or in my car. Interesting things you do.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, anyway,
Perhaps while being seduced by Jezebel.
Ooh,
That's true.
I definitely write in if you're being seduced by the Jezebel or the Jezebel demon.
Right.
Well, we're getting very bogged down on one question, though, so let's keep going.
But hand jobs.
So, yeah,
That was
exactly.
it. My passion has been sated.
No, yeah, after 3 days
3 days of mucking out the stables.
and hand jobs.
So this is
dirty hand job.
This is a very truncated letter, as you will realize in a future episode, perhaps. But just wanted to sequitur to B, no last name, who says, the podcast has been going great. The flea one has been my favorite so far. And if nothing else, I want to thank you for providing some comfort after my wife and I got into a very aggressive argument over whether Ready Player One was, quote, a series of fun ideas, or, quote, an intellectually offensive obstacle course over references I don't get and references I wish I didn't.
Ooh.
So thanks.
Yeah.
I guess.
Look what you've done.
Jeez, I'm sorry. I hope I didn't introduce too much discord into your life. It's interesting that Ready Player One keeps coming up again.
back. Yeah.
At some point now, it's only a matter of time before this dude discovers the podcast, author of that book, and I'm bracing myself for the shitstorm that's going to happen.
Just do an interview with him.
Oh, I have a feeling he would not want
Doesn't
to at
he
this
live in
point.
San Francisco?
Let's move on.
Let's move on. And it is also worth noting that B, no last name, later sent another email that said, Anthony Kiedis, not Flea, sorry.
Yeah.
So,
They're not interchangeable.
But-
Flea has a brain.
Okay.
He does. Flea is a smart guy, and
He was in The Big Lebowski.
He also used to hang with fucking Fishbone, and he played bass in a bunch of Young MC tracks, and he seems like a cool guy, whereas Anthony Kiedis seems like a meathead. So that's all I'm saying. All right.
okay. This is Sarah, no last name, who writes the following. Hey, you probably didn't notice that I sent an anguished tweet your way when you said you'd done an episode on Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
I did.
I conflated it with a different book too awful to talk about. The episode was great. That said, I'd like to know 2 things. Quick pause. I want to know what was too awful to talk about. Sarah, no last name, please email us back and tell us what book that was.
I'm actually super curious if maybe that's the book that I had it mixed up with in my head that I can't recall, because I can't remember what book it was I thought Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Mechanics was.
Are we thinking of the original Zen and the Art of Archery?
No, it was about motorcycles.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So, write in. Let us know.
Yeah,
we promise we
let us
will
know.
not make fun of you on the air, but we want to know really bad.
Yeah.
And maybe we might make fun of you on the air.
Without mentioning names, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, question
Sure.
1. If you haven't talked about it already, what gave you the idea for the podcast to begin with? 2, have there been any books you wanted to cover but didn't know how to approach / wanted to bring in someone with more knowledge on the subject? On the Brink comes to mind. Thanks so much for keeping at it. This is one of my favorite podcasts. It's all the fun of mocking bad writing. There's more very, very nice stuff. Thank you so much, Sarah, no last name.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you for being very nice.
Yeah.
I just don't want to read nothing but you saying nice things to us, but they've been heard and appreciated.
You can do that though.
Okay, well maybe.
Well, we've been doing it a lot, but I mean, I will say.
But those are good questions.
Yeah, I think they're really good questions. I mean, especially one of. Jeez, dog, calm down, please. Just sit down. Just be chill. Please. All right. Okay. Deep breaths. As far as the books that we've thought about but maybe needed to bring people in because they were maybe like outside our pay grade, I honestly I can't think of one so far. I will say stuff like On the Brink generally happens because it's suggested to us by people who have that expertise. So it's pretty rare for me to run across a book, and I mean I don't know about you, but be like, oh, I'd like to make fun of this, but we need to find somebody else. I mean, luckily, we think quite highly of ourselves here. So, and as far as the idea behind the podcast, I guess I'm the only one who can actually speak to this. But I'm going to tell the truth. Honestly, I like to make jingles. So I was like, it would be cool to have a show that I could make jingles for. And I like to read, and I like to be snarky about shit. And it evolved from there. I will also say that the book Ready Player One was a substantial motivation. And I'm not joking either. I think it's really common to see movies that are so bad you want to make fun of them. It doesn't happen a lot with books. When I read that book and was done, one of the first things that popped into my head was I need to find a platform where I can tell jokes about this horrible book.
Also, there was one summer, there's like San Francisco City will do this thing where it's like San Francisco reads.
Oh, the book a week.
Yeah,
Oh, right.
it'll be like a book of the summer.
Yeah.
And they'll have discussions, and the author will come in and give talks at, the main library and stuff. And Ready Player One a couple years ago
That's true.
was the book.
That's
And
why
it
I
was
picked
like-
it up originally.
Right, and it was like on bus ads, and it was like everywhere, and then we were both just like, holy shit, this is bad.
And just guessing, I don't remember if this was the very first episode or not, but when I was just listening, one of the very early episodes, you intro by saying, this is a podcast about bad books, except we actually talk about books, shots fired.
Yeah.
Which really got in my head because, there have been other places that sort of say they're going to talk about it, but then it turns out actually reading a book per podcast,
It's hard.
it's
It
hard.
is.
It,
It is.
it takes a
It
long
was
time.
hard this week.
It's not like you can sit down and watch an hour of TV or a 2-hour movie. It takes more of an investment than that. So I think that is probably part of the motivation.
I think so, for sure. Yeah, like there's definitely a couple shows I really enjoy, and still really enjoy, No Judgments Made, that started out talking about books, realized very early on that it's tough to keep up that momentum every week, and have kind of shifted more to just general pop culture. And I appreciate that, but I think that it's, a niche that should be filled one way or another.
There's a space for books too.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go on to Heather, no last name, who writes unsolicited suggestion, which is the best kind. Hello there, long-time listener, first-time caller. I happened to see there was a new Clive Barker novel out this month, which was supposedly a continuation of the story which birthed the Hellraiser movie series.
Oh my god, yes.
I am on vacation with a lot of audiobook listening time on my hands and some extra Audible credits to my name and thought this would be worth a laugh. And it was.
No.
All right, that sounds awesome.
Put it in the queue.
Yeah, put it in the queue. And I want to jump ahead and note that this book is in fact called The Scarlet Gospels.
Oh, hey.
Oh, wow.
Which is like the most Clive Barker name ever.
I got to admit, I like some of Clive Barker's stuff, so this might be interesting. Like Great and Secret Show, I thought was a really, really interesting tale. So I don't know.
Yeah, so
we'll talk about it. I may not hate it as much as you do, but I'm sure somebody will. So
I have to read this. It reads like Barker outsourced the writing of the book to a band of pinhead fanfic authors.
Oh boy.
With some of the worst dialogue I've ever heard, really lazy attempts at plot and character structure, and the embarrassing, persistent narrative reminder that Pinhead hates being called Pinhead.
Oh.
I'm reticent to unload all the things that I found awful, as I'm not sure you guys care to hear what some random stranger thinks of some random bad horror book.
We do.
Side note, yeah, we do. But I will say that I'd be interested to hear the book undergo a I don't even own a podcast or television analysis. Deep callback.
Yeah. I haven't done that in a while. I've been pretty good, but thank you.
So there is a fair
Long-time
amount
listener, first-time caller.
Definitely. There is a fair amount of gore, but it feels pale and is ridiculous in contrast to the other more well-written efforts. That said, if that's a deal breaker, then just never you mind.
We talked about Necroscope. We can do anything.
Yeah, I'm down.
Yeah. I guess we probably got time for one more, and then we should probably call it.
Okay,
Yeah,
let me take a quick look here. So that was that.
But once again, everybody, thank you for writing in. Please continue to.
And if we didn't get to you this time, we may get to you next time. So keep writing in.
I would especially appreciate some Centa Schumacher fan mail. So please send it to the IDEO email address. What is it?
That's I don't even own a television, all one word, at gmail.com.
Which
so that's
we'll
where
repeat
you
later.
say how much you love my dulcet tones.
Exactly. So probably Centa Schumacher fan mail, probably not so much Centa Schumacher fan fiction. is what you're looking for.
No, I would love some fan fiction about me. Oh my god.
Oh dear.
You're talking to the internet. You should be very careful what you ask for.
Oh, bring it on.
Okay, and this one has to be read.
Okay.
So we've been asked before, are there rules about books? And so far about the closest we've come are 2 rules. 1, we don't really want to punch down. 2, we know Snow Crash exists.
Yes.
Oh wait, isn't there no self-published?
That's the punching down. That all kind of fits
okay.
into this. We went over this in letters on the last episode in pretty good detail.
So this one from Tom, no last name, goes like this. Instead of Snow Crash. Great start.
Okay.
You should do an episode on the last book I'll ever read by Neil Stephenson. Cryptonomicon.
I liked that book.
It goes on
I
for
know
hundreds
you do.
of pages longer than it should due to subplots that go nowhere, such as a character's silk stocking fetish and his wife's antique furniture fetish. A long chapter about how a family will mathematically split up an estate, the present-day character explaining what D&D race and class he and his friends are. It goes on and on and on, and is full of the look how smart, cool I am nonsense the author is known for. I skipped entire chapters by reading the first and last pages, and was still able to understand the overall plot. And, being Neil Stephenson, it has a bullshit, out-of-nowhere cop-out ending.
It's all true.
I want to call this out for 2 reasons. 1, readers... Listeners, please do not ever suggest an 800 to 1,000 page
It's a good point.
Oh, that's painful.
We only get one of these out every 2 weeks, and we're dealing with little books. If you start sending these weighty tomes our way, you'll be lucky to get 2 podcasts a year. So.
Two, you're exactly right about everything that's wrong with Cryptonomicon. That letter jumped out at me because in one of my other projects, I not only described it as the last Neil Stephenson book I'll read, but the last Neil Stephenson book I liked. I'll be honest, I read it, didn't hate it, actually re-skimmed large parts of it recently. It's good for skimming and picking sections that you don't want to reread.
Yeah.
I would hate it if I picked it up cold today, and I will never read another Neil Stephenson book. But that one's not that terrible.
No, I agree.
To me, this is one of those books that, when you live with somebody and they're reading a book and you can kind of absorb it without having to read it. This is absolutely one of those. Because I remember when you were reading it and you were like, this is happening. And I was like, great. I will never need to read this now.
I think it was pretty good. I will also say I think every criticism in that letter is completely valid. But I enjoyed it regardless, and I'm not sure whether it's because of just kind of the kind of hardcore cryptography stuff in it, which I've always been a fan of, and also I find the story of Enigma and code breaking and stuff really fascinating, so maybe I have a predilection towards that type of stuff already, but I did find myself enjoying it. I also don't disagree with anything the writer said, though.
No, I mean, if ever there were a book that were tailor-made to be edited savagely, every Neil Stephenson book is that book.
Or what, the Baroque cycle, which is one book that's actually 15 books and they're all too long.
I got halfway through the second one of those and finally looked up and said, there's not a gun to my head, and closed it, gave it back to the friend I had borrowed it from, and haven't read a new page of Neil Stephenson since. And look at me, I'm healthy, I can do a push-up.
Welcome to your freedom.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, probably time for us to wrap up, but before we go, Centa, how will people keep up with you if they are so inclined?
Okay, cool. So I have a Twitter, Space Valkyrie, and also you can actually go to my website. I'm actually an artist. www.centaschumacher.com. But mostly, actually, if you want to like hear my not so witty witticisms, Twitter's the way to go.
It should be mentioned too, Schumacher. You'll see the way it's spelled on the name, and we'll make sure to link in the description. But in case you're curious, it's like the race car driver.
Or yeah, CentaSchumacher.com. Can you tell I've been spelling my name to people my whole life?
All right, and yeah, if you want to keep up with the goings on of the show, I don't even own a television.com is your best place. It has links to our Facebook and our Twitter, which is IDEOTV pod at twitter.com. And yeah, beyond that, just keep on writing in and
holler at us on Facebook. There's been a lot of churn on Facebook, especially about Wayward Pines, Lisa.
Yeah, that TV show hit Netflix, man, and like everybody that we told that book was bad wants to watch the TV show, and I don't know what's wrong with them.
Snow globes.
Yeah. Okay, can I say that? Yeah, I wanted to bring this up. The first episode of Wayward Pines, and I'm just going to mention, I watched the pilot. They cut to the sheriff. The first thing you see is a shot of his desk with a prominently displayed snow globe of the town Wayward Pines on it. Could you get more fucking on the nose than that? It made me go out loud when I saw it. Anyway, thanks for listening.
like that song of our childhood, things that make you go.
Yeah, it is. It was a thing that made me make all sorts of unspellable sounds.
Gas face.
So I guess until next time, Centa, thank you for being on.
You're
Thank you so
welcome.
much.
I love to be a guest on this podcast.
And we love to have you. And everybody at home, thank you for listening. We will see you next time. And until then, keep reading crap.
Get up in the morning, slaving for bread, sir, so that every mouth can be fed. Oh, the Israelite. When my kids step up and I leave me, darling, she said I was yours to receive.